Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Joe Lombardi. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Aaron.
We will not discuss Vince Lombardi, your last name, or anything like that, because for those watching, as you should be on YouTube or anywhere else, you will see that behind Joe is a Miami Dolphins, it looks like a towel, followed by a Dallas Cowboys helmet and jersey. And if you've listened before, you know that I am a Jet fan, so neither one of those things make me feel any better about neither one of those teams make me feel any better. And the Packers, by the way, the Vince Lombardi, make me feel any better about myself or my football team. So we're just going to skip over that if that's okay with you.
Sounds good to me.
Joe, your journey is super interesting to me because, and I mention this in every single episode, everyone should just quickly read the bio. Joe's bio is not very long, but it's very informative. And I want to just talk about one line. I told you I was going to bring it up first, and then we're just going to kind of roll with that because I have a lot of follow-ups about the hustle and how it relates to that. And that is, in your bio, it says, from losing his family's $15 million business and navigating financial devastation to becoming a leading figure in financial planning. I will get to the financial planning in a second or in a few minutes, but I want to talk about from losing his family's $15 million business and navigating financial devastation. Where does the internal fortitude and drive come from to lose it all and then decide to jump back into planning and not just scrambling for the rest of your life or giving it up or saying that finance is not for you and whatever? I want to hear the story about kind of maybe how things went south and how you bounce back and where that comes from.
It all started before I was even born. My mom wanted an abortion. I shouldn't even be here. My dad was pro-life. My mom liked drinking and doing drugs, and my dad wanted to start a family, and he talked my mom into having me. And then a few years later, she said, I don't want this kid. I want out of this marriage, and took all my dad's assets, and we moved into an attic, third floor, in a little rundown apartment building in Trumbull, Connecticut, and there was no running water. So I was eating noodles and eggs, with ketchup and hamburger helper without the hamburger meat. I was the poor fat kid with a Tasmanian devil shirt with a hole in it, shoes too small, so my toes look like claws. Grew up in extreme poverty. And then my dad's business took off. JV Lombardi Builders became huge, millionaires. New Jordans and new Iversons, they came out. I remember one time going to Wakeman Boys and Girls Club, having like a gold and black Iverson when they first came out with a red and blue one. So I had two different shoes on when I went there because I owned both pairs, and then my dad fell 3 stories off a ladder, the business I was supposed to take over. And, here I am at 15. My sister was born 2 pounds, 7 ounces, food alcohol syndrome. And she had to be taken care of. My ex-stepmom was in rehab. I guess my dad picks alcoholics, I guess, and then I couldn't say nothing, or both of us would have went to DCF. So I had to drop out of football, track, and basketball at Fairfield Ward and go work at a daycare my junior and senior year until my dad came back out of the hospital. So I've seen both sides, extremes, and I think that was something that was very valuable in my learning process of seeing extreme poverty, not really understanding what it is when you're young, then seeing extreme wealth. And, I was maybe 12 to 14. And then being back to being broke again made me realize that, first of all, it's a good quote from Wolf of Wall Street. If you had to be poor or rich, I'd choose rich every time. But, seeing both sides really allowed me to understand that you can work hard and you can hustle, which is something I've been doing for my whole life, to get to a point where everything that I have, my wife hasn't worked in, 14 years. I have 3 children. My daughter's on the U.S. Olympic dance team for tap. We got to go to Prague in October, coach my boys in football, lacrosse, and basketball in their whole life. Just bought my wife a new Escalade. I drive a 600 horsepower Jaguar SVR. I live in $1 million house. It's the coolest thing ever. But it came down to me grinding. And grinding is working 14-hour days and loving it, enjoying it. wanting to help people, wanting the passion of give me another meeting, give me another client, give me another opportunity. I want more. Not more as greed, but more in the sense of I want to help people. And when you have that why from what you've grown up with and seen the pain, the suffering, my mom dying at 52 years old from cirrhosis of the liver, go figure. My grandmother having a stroke, losing $4 million to a nursing home after her husband and my uncle died in the same year from Agent Orange. So when you see despair, suffering, you realize that life is short and you don't have a lot of time here. And while you're here, if you're not grinding your butt off every single day, then what the heck are you doing?
There's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to try to take it piece by piece because there's a lot there, and your hustle has been defined and redefined, and that's what this podcast is about, and that's what I love about doing this and talking to people like you. Did you ever wish that you didn't see the wealth piece? Because the reason why I ask that, and then obviously I want to focus on hustle, is because it is you said something very profound that I've heard from others, and that is that when a person is poor when they're young, when they're growing up, they don't really realize it. There's a certain level of blissful ignorance being a little kid, right? And I imagine that then seeing wealth in your teenage years brought you out of that blissful ignorance, but in a great way, because it was like, hey, I didn't realize how poor we are, but this is awesome. Like, I love this life so much better than that. I didn't realize how quote unquote bad or difficult it was then because I was a little kid, but this side of the coin is much better. And then, boom, the crash. Meaning, did you ever feel that temporary bliss wasn't worth it? Or after tasting it, did it motivate you to get a bigger bite?
So when I was younger, I used to drive by mansions in Greenfield Hill in Connecticut, $10 million houses. And I'd always say I'm going to, have that. It's almost in me, but I believe seeing both sides showed me reality, right? I don't know if you ever seen these experiments where they like take fleas. I just saw this video and they put a top on it and the fleas only jump as high as the top is, and then you take the top off, they never jump as high as they did when they first got in, and their kids are programmed, the flea, children only jump as high as their parents do. It's sort of a programming that we are in as humans with our society, our cultural, our industrial complex, that we are trained that we are peasants. We are trained that we are Social Security number XYZ, which is really your slave number to the United States of America Corporation. And I think that when you realize that life is so much more, that you can have what you don't even believe you can, it is the most freeing thing. So I can go back in time and see rich and poor. I do it 100 out of 100 times because in a way that motivated me, because if my father can do it, so can I. And when he became a millionaire, I said, so can I. Even though he lost it all, I said, well, so can I, but I'm going to have life insurance, disability, long-term care, a tax-free pension, a foundation, which is what I offer thousands of clients throughout the country. But that drive of seeing it, they say seeing is believing. Most people don't get to see it, so they don't believe it.
What do you believe stands in the way of most people?
Themselves, living in scarcity, chasing the dollar, making the dollar their God, not growing their spiritual life, their physical life, their mental life, their emotional life, which to me are all multipliers to your financial life.
Can I want to press that. What do you mean by that? Meaning, chasing the dollar. Understand, a lot of people feel that they're forced in that scarcity mindset. That's what they have to be. They'll never be able to dream big because they're just worrying about paying their bills, not even living extravagantly, but paying their bills. And what I believe you're saying is the best thing they can do, in addition to having a job and finding that passion and doing things like that, that's going to keep you even, not in the red, not in the green. Let's just say that the average person in America who finds a passion is willing to work not very hard, because I want to get to that in a second, not the 14-hour days, but the 8-hour days, the 40 hours a week, and take their whatever vacation they're allotted, can, if they're responsible, stay even. They won't have a life full of debt. They won't have, as you're saying, the potential of abundance or to chase their dreams. The key, I believe you're saying, are what you called multipliers. Why is that? How have you seen that? And why do most people overlook them?
Well, I mean, there was a study done where they asked, some college asked hundreds of thousands of people. I don't know the exact specifics, but I remember hearing this a few times. If you rather succeed or not fail, which one do you want? And an overwhelming amount of people said, I'd rather not fail than succeed. And so it's a programming from our federal government education where they train us to be employees. They put us in little, 15 by 15 rooms, and we grow up there like the flea. And we never get to experience abundance. We never get to experience wealth. You have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom, sort of like as an employee, you have to raise your hand if you can go see your sick grandmother in the hospital. And most of the time, the answer is no, get to work. Your grandma can die without you seeing her. And I never wanted that life. I'm very nervous. I don't like being constrained. In a way, you can call me claustrophobic. I want freedom. I want air. I have my own destiny. Don't tread on me. Like, you do you, whatever you like doing, cool. I don't care. Just don't tell me what to do. I believe we're all equal under God. And I believe that this whole level of hierarchy that they've created only stunts people from thinking, oh, I'm a peasant, I can never be a squire. Oh, I'm a squire, I can never be a king. We're all kings. And that's what a lot of people misrepresent or misunderstand because they're not educated that way. And then if you take the father out of the home, which is usually the leader for most children in our United States of America, that makes you live in scarcity because women are more protective in regards of being safe, and men on average will throw the baby up. They'll go hunting, they'll cut a fish open. So most people or children are raised by the federal government, which is more feminine, and they're raised by women, which is more feminine. And again, it doesn't matter if you're man or female. I'm just saying energies because we need both. We both need men and women energies. But I think when you take the man energy out, it stunts a lot of people's growth for believing in themselves, being strong, pain, right? What does every mom want to do is, oh, don't hurt my little Bob, don't hurt my little Joey. And the dads are like, get out there, go get your butt kicked as the linebacker or the running back in the football, pee-wee football team. So it goes super deep. But, the fact that I didn't have a mom growing up, that actually helped me. I was on my own a lot at 12. I learned a lot. A lot of it was the hard way, yes, but I learned a lot. And when I'm able to go through pain and learn, right? When you rip a muscle, what does it do? It makes it bigger, right? So most parents, and of course the school system, no bullying, they shelter you until you get to the real world. And then they put you in what? Debt, student loans. So now you're in fully debt. You're not super strong. You don't have self-confidence and self-love. And that leads you to being trapped in scarcity because you're just trying to survive when the winners are trying to thrive. And there's a big difference of thriving versus surviving.
But what do you say to those who would contend that the system allows for more people to be average, and that's more important than less people being great?
That no kid left behind thing, yeah, that definitely stunts a lot of brilliant geniuses that would have transformed our society in a quicker, better way because they have stronger minds. There'd be more arts in school.
I guess my question is staying away from the politics of intentional, squashing of dreams.
Right.
The people who are scared to fail, many of them make it to be average. And what you're saying is the people who are willing to risk it, to hustle just a little bit harder,
Yeah.
who are not afraid to fail,
Right.
but craving to win, striving to win,
Right.
those people are the people that see the greatest success, right?
I mean-
If you run scared, and I agree with you, a person who runs scared will never escape mediocrity.
Correct.
Good chance of getting of obtaining mediocrity. I think we can agree
Yes.
that they have a good chance of obtaining mediocrity. Why then, if it's a risk of potential failure, why is the risk worth the reward?
People don't like to be uncomfortable. That's why we have.
No, that's why they don't do it. But why is it worth the reward? In your view, when you say,
Oh my God, the freedom.
when you say I turned
have,
around, that's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
So self-accusation on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you've ever seen Maslow's
Sure.
hierarchy of needs. The top one is self-accusation. That's self-love. That's looking in the mirror, maybe not being the weight you want to be, the hair color you want to be, the scars you want to have, the body type that God gave you, the eye color, whatever it is. But having self-accusation that you're important and you are meant to be here. Mine has been validated for me. Most people's haven't. I shouldn't even have been born. My mom begged my dad to abort me. I've almost died 3 times, whether it's a boat accident, I drowned and was brought back to life. I used to drive 150 miles to 170 miles an hour every day when I was younger in a 2002 Nissan Sentra SER Spec V that I tricked out. So, you know, I shouldn't be here. So when you have the mentality of I shouldn't be here, or you can change that if you don't have any life crazy events and you haven't gone through so much childhood trauma and crazy crap that I've gone through, every day is a gift, right? Because there was a video I just watched. As the guy says, "Oh, do you want $10 million?" The guy said, "Yeah." He said, "All right, I'll give it to you, but you can't wake up tomorrow. You still want it?" And the guy goes, "Well, no." Well, so what you're telling me is that waking up is worth more to you than $10 million. So it's having that feeling that every day you wake up, you love who you are, you love what you do, and if you don't, you change it. And changing it means you have to go through pain, uncomfortability, unforeseen, which means you have to trust yourself and God. And by them taking God out of the school system, taking God out of everything, and saying, who's put there? The government? Government's God now. They own you. You don't pay them to go to jail. It's so it really boils down to whatever childhood trauma you have, whatever issues that is in your life. We all have them. 100% of people have childhood trauma. We've all yin and yang. We've all had situations where we were wronged, whether it's from our parents, whether it's from our friends, whether your girlfriend cheated on you, whether your buddy stole something from you. We've all been wronged. And most people hold on to that and say, I need to protect what I have instead of living in a world, because your perception and your thoughts is your reality. If you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. Either way, you're right. If you think that you are worth something, you think that you are important, right? One of the biggest reasons that got me to be a multimillionaire was, believe it or not, Amway double diamond CDs. My buddy joined Amway, that network marketing company, like 20 years ago, and he used to give me the CDs. And I'd be listening to mostly Indian people because that was the people that were on the CDs. And they'd be like, speak it into existence. Tell yourself you can, work harder. You can have the life you want. And I just kept listening to it in my car, in my, headphones where I went to sleep. And that change shift to say I'm in control, because we're not in control of a lot at all in this world, but I'm in control of my thoughts, I'm in control of my feelings, I'm in control of my personal actions. And that comes down to accountability, something we don't have as a culture. We're the most unaccountable culture, in my opinion, in history. Everybody blames everybody else for their own actions. And then you add on top of that entitlement. Oh my God. I don't know if you ever heard of the term that weak men create bad times create strong men create good times create weak men.
Sure.
We're on the good times create weak men. And it's going to need to be switched around, or our children and our children's children are going to be in big trouble.
So I hear the challenge. What is the number one tool that the listeners can implement in their lives? It could be an actual tool. It could be a mindset. What is the one thing that people can do positively, actionable? The most important thing that you think people can do to change that in their lives? I don't focus on changing the country, the world, things like that. That's not thinking abundant. I think that's thinking way outside of anything we can. But a person who wants to be abundant, a person who wants to achieve their highest level of success, not someone else's, their highest level of success, what is the number one tool they need to have in their toolbox to get there?
Well, a positive thought is a dream until you write it down and make it a goal. So I wrote down, I'm going to be a millionaire. I wrote down how I'm going to be a millionaire. I wrote down how I'm going to go from zero agents to over 50 agents, being licensed in all 50 states, having thousands of clients, billions of dollars, protection rollovers in my 22-year career. I wrote that down. And that drove me to say, I want a 600 horsepower Jaguar. I want my beautiful wife driving around a brand new murdered out Escalade with my children in the back. I want to be able to afford $40,000-$50,000 a year so my daughter can dance. I want to have a nice stock portfolio, a nice crypto portfolio. I want to have life insurance. I want to have disability. I want to have long-term care. I want to build a huge tax-free pool of money using my IUL. I wanted all that stuff. So I wrote it down and then I prioritized it, because what people do is they misprioritize things, whether they get tired, whether they get overwhelmed and they spend all their time worrying, which is if you worry, you live in the future, which is anxiety, or they worry and they live in the past, which is depression. Oh, I wish I did this. I wish that could happen. I wish my mom would have loved me. I wish I saw my mom before she died. Oh my God, I got this plane flight. I got to go to the Bahamas in 3 weeks. What's going to happen? I'm pretty claustrophobic. What's going to happen if the plane, there's turbulence? Live in the present. Right now, I'm living in this moment. I'm talking to a great man who has a great podcast. I'm having the ability to speak to other people and help them in any way. If you take one little bit, I am so blessed in this moment. Why am I going to worry about what I was wronged in the past or what horrible things I have ahead of me in the future? Live in the present. Write down your goals. Hold yourself accountable and be entitled to nothing. And if you live that way, you cannot not succeed. You have to win if you have the drive.
I'll tell you what I find amazing. I've spoken to so many people in my life and my career and as a result of this podcast who say, and I believe wrongfully, so I'm just going to state it and then we're going to talk about it. But the challenge of hustling, the challenge of keep hustling, of defining your hustle and chasing it, defining your goals, writing them down and chasing them, is that that a person will feel like there's nothing else once they've achieved those goals. And I believe that the most interesting thing about that is it's just exactly the opposite. Most people I've spoken to, and I think you'll agree with, if you don't, please tell me. Mm-hmm. Most people who set goals and achieve them are salivating to set the next one and achieve it. The people at the bottom who've never set the goals, as we spoke about living in scarcity, being afraid, they say, well, what happens when you hit your goals? Then you're going to feel like you've achieved it all and that there's nothing else to live for. Yet most people who actually hustle, who actually chase their dreams, who actually set the goals, and by the way, sometimes they fail and they redefine them, but they've set a goal and that's the trajectory that they're on for. Again, you probably set a goal when you were going to take over your father's business and by no fault of your own, it didn't work out due to a tragic outcome, but you had two choices. Say that was it. That was my goal. I didn't reach it. I didn't fail it. That was what the world, the cosmos had planned for me. It's over. Or no, I'm going to redefine my hustle and I'm going to achieve the goals. And I'm guessing, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that the Escalade wasn't the first car. Meaning the goal was to have a wife and the first home and have your wife have a car and you have a car. And then once you get there and you taste it, you say, hold on a second. I actually want her to have a nicer car and I want her to not have to work, even though originally it was just finding someone who would love me and I could love them and we could build a family. And so what's incredible about goal setting is that the motivation, as you said, is multiplied. It doesn't run out because the abundance becomes more abundant, even though that doesn't make logical or philosophical or physical sense.
It's true.
A person realizes when they get to the top of the mountain that they can see much further, and therefore they want to go even higher to see even further when they climb. So I think that that's an amazing message, and that is what every person can do. Nobody cannot set a goal. That was a double negative. But there is nobody in the world who shouldn't and can't set a goal. A person can be wheelchair bound, God forbid, and paralyzed from the waist down or from the neck down, and they can set a goal. It'll be different than the person who can walk, but everybody can set a goal and everyone can chase that goal. And that, I believe, is the greatest multiplier. That is keep hustling. That is what keeps the gold in sight. That's the dreams in sight, never quit. That's what helps people pop out of bed in the morning and not just roll over. Sorry for the rant.
No, it's true. There was a time in my career where I wasn't growing. I was happy making $250,000 a year at that point, and I was just floating. And then what happens is you get bored. And then, most people, or I could just speak for myself, when I get bored, I do bad things. Gamble, drink, smoke, play video games. I do things that aren't productive towards being a good father, a good husband, a good child of God. And I realized that if you stop growing, you start dying. There is no constant. That's one thing that people don't understand. You're either going up or down. You're either moving left or right. There is no standing still in your life. There isn't. You think like, oh, I had $500 in the bank on Monday. I have $500 in the bank 3 weeks from now. It's going to keep going. Everything's going to change. Your weight's going to fluctuate. Your bank account's going to fluctuate. Your relationships are going to fluctuate. And if you're not trying to keep growing and becoming a better person, which is the multiplication factor, the minute I took God out of, or money out of my high, and I put God there, my life exploded. I can't tell you. I'm on all the DraftKings commercials nationwide. I played basketball with the Celtics. I played baseball with the Red Sox. I knocked out the CEO of DraftKings in a poker tournament at Foxwoods. I've won a $250,000 craps tournament. I've done the craziest stuff you will ever imagine. I've been on the Jumbotron. I've been to 7 different continents. I've done it. You name it. It's so vitally important to make sure that you have a goal and you're moving in the right direction. And if you're not growing, you have to grow. And I realized when I quit gambling, I quit doing all that stuff. I put God as my all-time high. I invested in me instead of Honduras volleyball at 3:00 in the morning, putting 50 grand on a team I can't even spell to chase my money back from losses on blackjack and craps and slots. What that did is all that energy and time that I was focused. Oh, I gotta hit this. I gotta hit this. And I got more peace in my life. I got more balance in my life. I have a therapist. I have a psychotherapist. I have a personal trainer. It elevated me. 10 months ago, I had no agents. I was the company. Now I'm building a company. It's the scariest, most exciting thing you could think of, that I'm in charge of 50 people's quality of life right now. And it keeps growing. I talked to 3 other people this week that want to join Ironhawk Financial as insurance agents. God gave me the gift to say, I'm going to keep growing because I've been on both sides of the fence financially. I've been on both sides of the fence when it comes to doing the right thing. I've sinned a lot. And when you have the ability and you can correct that and say, yes, I was a sinner, but I'm now going to walk with Jesus. That changed my life. And people can call me a quack and call me whatever you want, but guess what? Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. I make millions of dollars a year. I didn't make that before I found God. I have hundreds and hundreds of people that rely on me with my people I work with and their families. I have strategic alliances with people I could never believe. I talk to professional athletes now. Like, huh? Me? The poor fat kid who was bullied every day, who had no self-esteem, who had no one love him. His dad was working 70 hours a week. His mom didn't want him, wanted him dead. And me? I bought my wife a new Escalade in cash. Me? What's so special about me? The only thing special about me is I believed I could. If you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. Either way, you're right. Why not think you can? Why not hustle your butt off for your dreams and the people you love and put some duty in your life? Put some sacrifice in your life. Stop being selfish. And that's the problem with most people.
100%. I love it. I love it. I love your story. Everyone should reach out to you. We're going to put all your contact in the show notes. Joe, thanks again for being here. As you know, we ask all of our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational, inspirational quote and what it means to their hustle. And with that, I'll say thank you again, Joe Lombardi, for being here and for inspiring our listeners' hustles. And the floor is yours.
I gave a lot of good wisdom, but I think the number one thing you can do is love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, find out why and work through it. And it usually has to do with childhood trauma. It really does. It has to do with a programming you had as a child that doesn't serve you anymore for the purposes and goals you have today. And you have to identify that programming, which takes therapy. It is what it is. And once you identify it, mine was my mommy didn't love me. And I kept that with me for 30 years, 38 years, that I wasn't good enough. So I had to work harder and have people like me. I identified that and say, I am good enough. I'm a 40-year-old man. My mom's dead. Well, why am I holding on to this negative energy? And when you identify that and you crush it, peace, abundance, next level comes in. So cure whatever you have that's wrong with you. And if you don't know what's wrong with you, talk to a licensed therapist. That would be my advice.
Love yourself. Thank you, Joe. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good. And of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.